What can rocks in four seemingly unrelated places tell us about the past? Well, let's look at how scientists unravel the puzzle of rocks to find out. In short, what we're going to learn today is that they analyze the similar rocks that contain the same fossils and use that to piece together the history of that location. Have you ever been looking at pictures and tried to figure out when it was taken? Well, certain fashion trends are very popular for a short period of time, like bell bottoms in the 70s or poodle skirts in the 50s. And when we look at a picture and we see people wearing those things, we can narrow down like, oh, that was probably taken during that time. Trucker meshies, super low-cut jeans, early 2000s. And we could call these things index fashion because they were widely popular for a very short period of time. It could help us date a photo. Bad index fashion would be like a white t-shirt because it's been popular for like 100 years, so it'd be hard to narrow down when that picture was taken. Similar to index fashion, index fossils are widely distributed for a very short period of time, like our friend the trilobite, which is found in a lot of places around the world from 500 to 250 million years ago, and they can get pretty big too. Ammonites, on the other hand, were found 250 to 65 million years ago, and you can see they also got pretty big. The presence of these fossils in a rock sample gives us an idea of the time frame that we're working with, and that can help the scientists then to figure out when another fossil species or the rock itself lived or was formed. So back to this sweet picture, neon tracksuits, feathered bangs, it's gotta be the 90s. So what scientists will often find is that there are rock layers that are very distant from each other that are laid in the same order, and they're assumed to be the same age because they contain the same mineral content and the same fossils, like the bottom two layers of rock in all four locations. Then we get up to that third layer, and there's this really weird situation where Area 1 and 2 have the same type of stone, but Area 3 and 4 don't. And so when there's gaps within the rock record in some places and not others, we call these things unconformities, where the rocks do not correlate to each other or the layers do not match. Some of that could be from erosion. Some of it could also be from lack of deposition when areas of the land were just elevated up above the surface of water, where we usually get sedimentary rock deposited. So over in Area 1, we got erosion, and then over in Area 3 and 4, we have lack of deposition because those areas were elevated to the above water level. So relative dating uses the ages of the corollary rock layers and the index fossils to estimate the range of a certain rock. So the bottom layer contains trilobites, so it's somewhere between 500 and 250 million years old. And the fourth layer contains ammonites, so it's somewhere between 250 and 65 million years old. So if we wanted to know how old the fossils were in the second to the bottom layer, we know it's going to be older than 250, but it's going to be younger than 500 because trilobites, between the trilobites and the ammonites, basically. Because there's an extra layer on top of it, we could give an estimations around 400 million years old and then keep searching for more information. When did that volcano erupt in layer number 5? Well, layer number 4 contains Stegosaurus fossils, and they lived between 155 and 150 million years old ago. And the meteor impacted 65 million years ago, which we know from a bunch of fossil evidence. So we know the volcano erupted between 150 and 65 million years ago. As more corollary rock layers are discovered and as more fossils are found, especially as more index fossils are found regionally and worldwide, scientists are able to get a better picture of what life used to look like on Earth and the relative date windows. So what's the real story in this example area? Well, 500 million years ago, this whole area was covered by an ocean, and the sediment from the land and the pieces of sea creatures all got crushed into a layer of limestone. Limestone only forms at the bottom of the ocean, so we know that any fossils that are going to be contained are going to be fossils from sea creatures. As a matter of fact, the rock itself is actually mostly made from the bodies of those sea creatures. Then, 400 million years ago, this area had been slowly elevated to be just at the bottom of a river delta where a lot of mud came down the river and hardened into shale, and the fossils found within are likely to be freshwater or land creatures. 300 million years ago, part of the area remained submerged and the other part became dry land. So the submerged part is going to continue to have sedimentary rock formed with fossils being added. And the part that got elevated above the land isn't going to have a whole lot of new fossils being found, because usually we find fossils in sedimentary rocks, and those are formed underneath of the water. Over the next 100 million years to 200 million years ago, the entire area is now again submerged at a shallow sea level, and the sandstone layer that is formed in all of the areas is going to trap aquatic animals, particularly saltwater animals in the ocean. 50 million years later, Area 1 is going to take off with a divergent plate and get pushed above the land, and the rest is going to become a boggy marsh that is right kind of on the edge of the water and the land, and we're going to find all kinds of really cool plants and animals within this area, particularly some super cool dinosaurs. Because Area 1 has been thrust pretty high up, we aren't going to see a lot of fossils being deposited there. 100 million years ago now, Areas 2, 3, and 4 are going to move over a volcanic hotspot that's going to center on Area 4. There's going to be a bunch of earthquakes that are going to kind of move and separate up the land, but before that happens, that volcanic eruption is going to spread a crazy layer of ash and volcanic rock over Areas 2, 3, and 4 that we can align with each other. Then 65 million years ago, a massive meteor strike happens and sends a fine layer of dust that falls over all of the layers of the planet and also causes a mass extinction. Previously found fossils are going to no longer be found in layers that are above the 65 million year mark. 40 billion years ago, Area 2 is going to resubmerge below the surface of the ocean, and more sandstone or limestone is going to continue deposit with the sediment, and we would be likely to find some more recent marine fossils. Area 3 is going to be covered by a seasonal lake, and so we might also find some layers of shale that could contain some freshwater or even land-dwelling fossils in that particular area. 20 million years ago, the volcanic hotspot in Area 4 is going to maintain very high levels of activity, and so we're going to see additional lava flows over time as that volcanic area continues to be active. The interesting thing is that the scientists can figure out that all of that happened just by looking at the rocks. Over time, Area 1 experiences a lot of erosion as pieces of the rock are picked off by wind and water and washed down into the ocean to become new sedimentary rock. So very little of that old rock is exposed on the top of the mountain, and every year a little bit more disappears. Area 2 is our area that we think of as being underneath of the ocean, but it hasn't always been buried under the ocean, and we can tell that by digging down into the rock samples. Area 3 is under a lake, but again, that could change in the future. And Area 4, which is part of a volcano, also contains some pretty interesting information about the past of the Earth. Erosion, faults, and plate boundary movement will continue to change these areas forever and ever.